Welcome, everyone, to the Marin LAFCO Local Agency Formation Commission meeting. It is June 12th, and it is 6:32, and we are in the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Meeting Room, Suite 335, 1600 Los Gamos Drive, San Rafael. And Madam Clerk, would you call us to order and do a roll call?
Chair Kohler,
Oh, I'm here.
Vice Chair Rodoni,
Here.
Commissioner Caius,
Present.
Commissioner Lucan.
Here.
Commissioner Murray,
Just say
Here.
here. Yeah, it's missing a battery.
Commissioner Burdo,
You can share with me. Okay.
Commissioner Chu,
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Hilliard,
Here.
Alternate Commissioner Farrock, Alternate Commissioner Moulton Peters, Alternate Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Is that not working?
It worked. I heard it.
Okay. Yeah, put the dummy over there by Steve Burdo.
It works. Yeah.
It works?
Just now.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. And agenda review. Did anybody want to move anything or remove anything from the agenda?
Quick comment on.
We're not at the minutes. We're just on agenda review. Okay, and so seeing no changes, moving on to public open time. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on the current agenda. All statements that require a response will be referred to staff for reply in writing or will be placed on the commission's agenda for consideration at a later meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. I see no one in the room.
And there's no one on Zoom.
Okay, I'm closing public open time. We're going to consent calendar items and first of all, I'd like to ask if any commissioners would like to remove any. Oh, okay.
Staff would like to remove the legislative committee recommendations. We want to have a discussion and change one part of that.
Okay, so that is item 3.
Yes.
Okay, and we should note that Commissioner Burdo has arrived.
Walk out from desk attendant.
We kind of did that on purpose. No, we didn't. Okay, so we have item 3. Did you just want to make a comment
Just comment.
versus pull it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's first make a motion to move item 3 to the regular agenda.
It needs to be a regular commissioner,
That's
not
right.
alternate.
You're right.
So moved. Wait. So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so item 3 will be moved to the regular agenda, and you just had a comment on the minutes?
Yeah, just on the San Quentin item for the last meeting. I did ask who the applicant was.
Do you have your,
I do, but I can't get too close to the mic. There's no.
oh,
phone on.
nothing
Good,
on there?
Okay. Better?
Turn you up.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just so light, I couldn't tell.
The last item was a San Quentin item. And I just wanted to make sure that there's a comment in the minutes about the applicant. It said state of California. So is there a person or a department as an applicant? That's it.
Okay. And just a comment on just small items like that, you can provide those to staff beforehand if you have time, and they can do those administratively. That's what I usually do.
Yeah, I had some correspondence earlier today.
Great. Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments on consent calendar items? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom because there's no one in the room?
There's no one on Zoom.
Okay, bringing it back for a motion for the consent calendar minus item 3. Somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. Second.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have Commissioner Rodoni or Vice Chair Rodoni and second by Commissioner Chu. Is that correct? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, passes unanimously. Okay, moving on. Why don't we just do item 3 right now, if that's all right? I think, is Jaren on?
No,
Zoom?
Oh, I should have mentioned at the beginning. Jaren is homesick. He is on Zoom, but I am going to take all of his issues. If I mess something up, he will pop in and say hi and tell me what I messed up.
Okay.
But I'm going to take his items because he's really not feeling well, and I don't. If you listen to his voice, you would have a hard time understanding him right now. So I'm going to take
Okay.
all of his stuff tonight.
Before you do that, I want to welcome Mala, who is on Zoom, and apologize for not doing that sooner. Okay, go ahead.
All right. So item 3 is the legislative committee recommendations. Normally, this is a standard thing. There is one piece of legislation that has a major impact in Marin County, and that is Bill SB 777. There was as a very brief background, there was a failing cemetery district in LA County, and so an LA County State Assembly member put together a bill that basically has statewide implementations. Excuse me, sorry for the bad pronunciation there. And that bill, unfortunately, will impact a failing cemetery here in San Rafael. And LAFCO will be put in an untenuous choice of telling either the city of San Rafael or the county of Marin, you now have to take over a failed cemetery and turn it into a public cemetery district, which is not a good thing a good position for either of those two agencies to be in. LAFCO currently has an opposed unless amended. They just released a bunch of amendments and took most of LAFCO's concerns. And so my personal concern is that even if this bill gets amended the way it was just introduced, that Cal LAFCO may go to a neutral position, which is understandable for LAFCO because it doesn't have a direct impact. The negative impact it used to have has been taken out of it. I want to keep us on that one, not aligning with Cal LAFCO, so that way if we want to stay opposed, we can. I want to support our 2 member agencies who are going to be facing a very bad situation if this bill gets passed. So I want to continue to be opposed until I hear from the county and from the city that their concerns have also been addressed in this bill. So that's what we're doing. Then the other item that I would recommend on that particular bill is right now we have what's referred to as position 2. For those that have never been on the Ledge Committee, I'll give you a brief synopsis. Position 1 means we are taking a very serious approach to this bill. We will go, if need be, we can go to staff will go to Sacramento to lobby legislators on it. We will do whatever it takes to try and stop this bill. 2 is a step down from that. That's more of we take a passive approach. We'll if asked, we'll do things, but we're going to pretty much stay in Marin. We're not really going to go anywhere else to do things. And step 3 is we take an extremely passive approach. We write letters, and that's about all we'll ever do for a piece of legislation. Most legislation that we follow in Sacramento, because it has no impact on Marin LAFCO directly, tends to be a position 3. In the case as it sits right now, 777, the legislative committee, based on staff recommendation, took a position 2. We'll be a little more active, but not fully. Based on where things are going and to the degree in my thinking that perhaps the city of San Rafael or the county of Marin might need our help in Sacramento expressing like what we're doing and how it impacts, how LAFCO impacts and we're the LAFCO experts, that if San Rafael or the county asks, hey, Jason, can you, or Jaren, can one of you come to the state capitol to help us figure out how to get the corrections that we need your expertise in the room, I would want to be there to help support them because I believe they are our member agencies and we should try and help them on when something's going to be as negative as this bill is to them, that we should be there to help support those folks. So the question I would have for the commission is, would you be comfortable with staff potentially going to Sacramento and lobbying and helping the city of San Rafael and or the county of Marin as this piece of legislation hopefully continues to get amended and worked through? If so, we should change the position to position 1 or level 1, so that way staff can do those types of activities in Sacramento. I know that's a lot, so I'm sure you have some questions on that.
Before we ask a question, I'm a little confused because in the staff report, it says oppose unless amended. And in the actual letter, it says oppose. What do we do?
The letter was sent.
I mean, it says
Yeah.
May 13 and it just says oppose. And the kicker at the end is we oppose it. But the staff report says oppose unless amended. So what was Cal LAFCO's original position?
Cal LAFCO's original position was opposed until amended, and then it got Cal LAFCO, to be fair, because of all the turmoil that's been going on in the past, they're still trying to get their sea legs opposed. And Jaren is telling me that Cal LAFCO is simply opposed at this point.
Well, you said Okay, so because I just want to clarify this because he talked to me when he had me come
Yes.
sign a check and had concerns because San Rafael had not taken any position. And I called Kate Collin and told her about it. And you've told me that they have since taken a position. What is San Rafael's position? They issued a letter?
They did issue a letter, and their letter was opposed until amend. Or
Okay.
excuse me, I take that back. Jaren's telling me it's just opposed.
Okay, so did the county take a position?
I have not seen something from the county.
So one of the things, I guess I just want to put this out there that we probably should reach out to Talia Smith and we need to find out what they're doing. Frankly, I'm not really sure that Marin LAFCO will hold a lot of weight at the Capitol, but I will hold my fire there. I think if San Rafael and the county, with Talia taking the lead for the county, want to fight this battle at the Capitol, it might be better. But I think alternate Commissioner Hilliard had a question.
A comment, actually.
Okay, is your
and
mic on?
Eric, you and I were in the meeting together. It's on.
Okay.
The bad part of this bill was that in the interim, we are the holder of that that cemetery district as LAFCO. So it's under our aegis. I think it is.
We make the decision as to who gets it.
But
We're not
okay.
the holder
Oh,
of it.
good. But so we did not at the legislative committee level wanted that responsibility at all. And also Jaren did call me as well. And so what he said is that these amendments have been discussed, but they're not in writing. And until he sees the stuff in writing that says that the compromises have been made, he has suggested that we continue to hold our position or whatever he put in the letter.
Okay, and have we checked, Ledge Info to make sure that there haven't been any
No,
changes?
I was gonna wait for everyone to decide. We did yesterday get amendments to it, and we have started to read through them and figure out what they actually are. This is a very fast moving. We will be sending comments to Cal LAFCO so that they're aware of what our concerns are within the bill as they're starting to do their discussions. I think it's on Friday, tomorrow.
Okay, so others on the legislative committee want to weigh in first? Eric?
I'll just mention that the county has taken an opposed position and as of just yesterday submitted a letter formalizing that opposed position.
Great. Okay. I'm sorry, I forget. I know you're the chair. Who's the other person on the legislative committee?
Eric?
No,
and-
it's Rachel who's.
Oh, she's not here. Okay,
Sorry.
great. Others have questions? Um,
I would just suggest that we support our member agencies and oppose. I don't know that, quite honestly, we need to go to Sacramento. I don't think the county will be going to Sacramento. We'll be using our lobbyists probably.
yeah, and you guys have a lobbyist.
Senator
Yeah,
doing the same. So I don't know if you need that authority is what I'm saying, but I'm fine if you want it.
okay. Commissioner Murray?
So I think what Jason was indicating that these are private companies and purview of private matters. If they were public, like a cemetery district, then it'd be more of a LAFCO concern. Although here in Marin, it is unique and there's one that's in serious grave danger and needing things such as like recycled water. So there could be intergovernmental items that could help that. But I think what Jason's saying is oppose, watch it, and see what comes out of it. But I'm fine with supporting our member agencies in the oppose, but there is a unique one, but it's private rather than a
Well,
public,
it's
isn't it?
private today. When this legislation passes, we will have to turn it into a public cemetery district. We will be forced to by state legislature.
Okay, other questions, comments of commissioners? Is there since there's no one in the room, I'm sorry, Commissioner Caius?
So Jason, you specifically talk about the Santa Fe Cemetery. Was there any consideration or does this apply at all to the Mount Tam Cemetery down in Tam Valley?
The only one that is currently on the list is the one in San Rafael. It doesn't mean that in the future that the other ones in the county couldn't get put on that list. But right now, the only one in Marin County is there are actually across the entire state, there are 6 specifically identified cemeteries, and the one in San Rafael is one of those 6. There's no others in Marin County on that list.
And the one in San Rafael has been all over the news about the condition and what happened there. Other commissioners, comments, questions? Is there anyone on Zoom since there's no one in the room? Okay, bringing it back. So it's good that both San Rafael and the county took a position. I would ask the commission, if you want to go to Sacramento, it's quite a schlep, and it's also, you could be there till 11 or 12 at night, and I'm not sure that we have lobbyists for the county as well as the city. Does the city actually have lobbyists?
I think they do.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've sat in the Capitol till midnight or beyond on bills, and I'm just not really sure that it would be a great use of our time, but what do others think? I mean, whatever, if you guys really want this authority, I'm not going to oppose it.
I'm just throwing it out there that if we were requested, do we want to be able to offer it? But at the end of the day, I'm in the same position you are, Chair Kohler. I have no interest in going to Sacramento and sitting there until midnight as well. But if requested, does this commission want me to do it? And if you say take position 2, then that means no, we're just not going to be able to do that, and that's fine. I got no problems with that. I'm just trying to make sure the options are there in case someone asks for it.
Well, I think if you're really just I'm sorry, if you're really just talking about if requested versus us kind of taking this proactive stance without being requested, 2 different things. I think if requested makes sense. Go ahead, Commissioner Murray.
The same thing. Basically, Jason and Jaren stand by. If the member agencies call them up and say, hey, we need some help in Sacramento, items coming up, it's a very important vote. We need some background. I'm fine with that.
Okay. So I don't see, so I think basically the conclusion is tier 1, but only if requested by our member agencies. And do we need a vote on that?
You need to vote on the overall package.
Okay, but in the package, you didn't put that.
Yeah, no, so what you would want to do is accept the committee's report amending SB 777 to be opposed and
It's already opposed. You've already done that.
and move to tier 1 if requested by others to help.
Okay, would somebody like to move that? Don't all jump up.
I'll move as mentioned by our executive officer.
Okay, Commissioner Murray, would somebody like to second?
I'll- Go ahead.
Okay, we have Commissioner Chu seconding. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? Well, thank you. And I want to thank the committee for doing such good work and for Jaren, who has been very active in this. And also, it's great that our member agencies have taken a position because they're the ones that will be really in the hot seat. Thank you. Okay, let's move on.
Madam Chair, just for the record, Steve seconded. I was reaching for the mic.
Okay, it was very quiet, so I just saw your hand. Was your mic on?
Well, my mic wasn't.
No, was Commissioner Berto, was your mic on?
Yeah, my mic's always on, baby.
Oh, babe? Okay, that's what we call the chair now? I love that.
General.
Okay, no, I love that. Okay, so now we're moving on to our public hearings. And our first public hearing is approval of Resolution 25-16, annexation of 190 Seaview Avenue, San Rafael, APN 014-042-018 into San Rafael Sanitation District LAFCO file of 1391 with waiver of notice, hearing, and protest proceedings and finding exempt from CEQA pursuant to state CEQA guidelines 15319. And I want to open the public hearing. And now who is doing the staff report?
Claire
Oh,
will do it.
Claire, thank you.
Okay, so this application is no different than the last few applications we've had. It's out in San Rafael Country Club, and it's a simple annexation to get into the sanitary district. However, I do want to note that this is one that falls under the delayed dual annexation, which they have signed. And we've received all comments back in full support from the sanitary district and other agencies involved.
Excellent. So any commissioners or alternate commissioners have questions or comments to staff? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom? Any of the applicants on Zoom?
No, they had a family function they needed to be at today, so we're not able to attend.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back and close the public hearing. And would anybody like to move?
I'll move the item.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Murray. Would somebody like to second?
I'll second.
Okay, so Commissioner Caius, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And okay, well, we're taking the
Question
vote.
the item, but
Okay, we
finish the vote.
we should have asked it before, but okay. And any abstentions? Seeing none, that measure passes unanimously. And alternate Commissioner Smith?
I just had a question, mostly of staff on this. It seems like we've had like in the past couple
A lot.
of things, we've had 3 or 4 of these, and they all come from the same neighborhood. Since I live in that neighborhood, I'm familiar with it. Is there any way of streamlining this and making it easier so it doesn't even have to rise to this level and making it easier for applicants? It seems like it's a pretty cut and dry process, adding homes that are in Country Club to the San Rafael Sewer District. Or is this just that process? that
Well,
needs to happen?
I think not all people want to get off of septic so quickly, but go ahead.
I mean, the only other way that you could streamline this process is to annex the entire area. The problem that you have there is you then take all of these people who are not on septic and or who are on septic and not on the sewer system and putting them into a district that they they don't pay any bills to, they don't do anything with, but yet they still have a responsibility within that district. So it would be kind of awkward in some ways to do it that way.
Aren't the homes that are homes in that area, unincorporated area, aren't the ones that are on sewer in the district?
No.
No, they're on
If you,
septic.
the way some sewer,
Thought they were.
yeah, some sewer districts have the entire area already covered. Like Ross Valley is one that doesn't have any real holes in it. The way San Rafael got set up years ago was if you were not connected to their system, you were not there. So if you look at their map, and I'm happy to show it to you offline,
that's
their
just-
map,
we don't have to get
it
here.
looks like Swiss cheese. There's just a lot of little holes all over the place of where the people never got off of septic. And eventually, as they get off of septic now, and what you're seeing is one of the reasons why I see this is a lot of those homes were built about the same time. So you're going to start seeing septic tanks starting to fail. And so now, as they fail, they're getting put onto the sewer system.
Okay. You and I can talk offline
Yeah.
about this further. Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to mention that in Fairfax, there's areas far in the Cascades that are still on septic, and you've explained to me they're not close to the lines for Ross Valley Sanitary. That's why we've never seen an annexation, at least in my time.
Yep.
Okay, well, thank you for that comment. Okay, and moving on to our next public hearing, and I'm going to open the public hearing, receive report on AB 2561, discussion on status of employee vacancies, recruitment and retention efforts. So Executive Officer Freed.
Yes, so there is a new state law put in place by AB 2561 that basically says anytime we're doing our budget, we have to have a report on employment vacancies, recruitment, and retention efforts. In the staff report, I mentioned we have no vacancies, so there is no recruitment. I think we have a pretty good retention effort because clearly we have no vacancies. So we have nothing to report, but we were required to do this report as part of today's meeting before we approve the budget. So you have the report. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, you can simply move on to the next item.
Does anyone, commissioners, have questions, comments? And most of you who sit on other boards or jurisdictions will have this come before you. Anybody on Zoom?
No one's on Zoom.
Okay, bringing you back, I'm going to close the public hearing. Would somebody like to move this item?
You don't need to move this item. You can simply move on to the next
Oh,
item, if I'm not mistaken. Molly, am I
well-
correct? Yeah, Molly's shaking her head saying I'm correct
Okay,
on that.
great.
No actions.
Great. Now we're moving on to item 6, adoption of final operating draft budget for fiscal year 2025, 2026. I'm going to open the public hearing. Anyone have, commissioners have questions for staff? I have a question.
Yes.
So I think it's great news that you lowered the increase from 7.57% to 4.02%. And thank you, Chair, for approving that change. This means that the member agencies' dues will be less, correct? And
They
have,
will be more than what they are this year, but they will be less than what we were telling them they would be after the April proposed budget.
and have we notified the agencies, or are we going to do that after this?
Yeah, the way the process is we send out the budget. No one has commented on the budget. And once the budget is completed, we send them a notice saying, here's what the final budget is, and they will be aware of it at that point.
And we send them the whole budget? We don't just tell them what their dues are?
We do not get involved in the dues process. That is actually run by the county.
Okay, well, I just, we're going through our budget process and we're looking for every penny in the couch. So I told them that it was going to lower and it would be good if we knew kind of what the amount was.
Unfortunately, we can't give that number out. What the county does is after July 1st, they get a report from the state controller's office that says, here's how much income was for a fiscal year, normally 2 or 3 years ago, which is rather annoying, but it's whatever their most recent numbers are that the state controller's office has. The county then says, okay, so we then split up the budget and they have a whole mathematical formula that they do. And then that's when they're able to tell us what the agency contributions are. I wish we could tell them ahead of time, but we can't.
Okay, great. And the other question you and I talked about online was, when we approve this budget, you'll be able to then figure out how much money can go into the legal reserve fund?
No, the legal reserve fund will be known after we close out this fiscal year's budget.
Okay, thank you.
That's when we will know what goes into that reserve fund.
And when do we usually close this year's budget out, like August?
I could probably tell you in August because we have to wait for the county to close its books out. We technically don't close our books out until September, October timeframe.
Okay, well, just good to know. And at some point at one of these meetings, if you can just report out.
I will absolutely do so.
Okay, it looks like I was the only one with questions. Anybody on Zoom?
There are no members on Zoom.
Okay, bringing it back, would anybody like to move this item? Oh, closing the public hearing.
I'd be happy to move this item and thank the Budget Committee after many evenings and long weekends. We were able to come up with this budget and thank you for the adjustment, Jason. I did confirm that was going to be done and move this forward. So I'll move this item.
The one comment I wanted to make is the reason why we were able to lower it as much as we had 2 applications come in at the very end of the year. So that's what kind of gave us that little extra bit to get it even lower than what I was originally anticipating.
Okay, would somebody like to second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have Commissioner Kaya second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and I want to thank the Budget Committee as well as Jason and staff for putting this budget together so expeditiously. Really appreciate that. Okay, one more public hearing. Okay, approval of Resolution 25-17, update to the Marin LAFCO fee schedule, and I want to open the public hearing. Is there a staff report?
Yeah, I'll give a very brief staff report. For those that this might be your first time going through the fee schedule update process, every 2 years we've determined we want to update the fee schedule. What we do on the staff side is first we look at what are we doing, how are we operating, has anything changed in our operations? That's part one of the process. We present that to the Budget Committee, and the Budget Committee says we're okay with it. So what came out of the Budget Committee, and this was several months ago now, was that we added a few hours of time into our applications. We have taken a much more, what I want to call customer service friendly application process rather than telling the applicant, go find this stuff on your own. We sit down and help them out a little bit more than we've used to. I think that you will find that our applicants are much happier now because we're helping them a little bit more, but that means we spend a few more hours on each application. So we added in a few hours to do that. We also added things like, ADA remediation. That was never really in our fee schedule before, but we realized we're spending time on it. Why isn't that part of the process? So Claire did an excellent job helping me go through all of the line items, and you can see it in the packet. There's that Excel spreadsheet that you can see in there that has all those line items. She went in through that and did a very thorough job in saying, here's what I would change and update, and the committee accepted that. Then part 2 of the process is we have to figure out how much do we charge, how much does staff actually cost us? So what I do And the reason why we don't do this in the April meeting, but we wait until June is I wait until we know what is everyone's salary is going to be. We've now negotiated my contract. We know what that is. Staff have gotten their COLA, and if they've deserved it, merit increases. So we know what all of our costs are. We know what all the benefit costs are. So I add all those things together, figure out how much everything costs for me, divide that by 2,080, do the same for Jaron and Claire, throw that into a nice formula, and it spits out the numbers. This year, our increase partly due to, remember, this is a over 2-year increase. What I always call our main style of applications, the one we had today, applicant wanting to go into a sewer district because they're on a sanitation line. Those are going to increase by about 10%. And that's partly due to the extra hours we're spending, but also due to, COLA and other increases that have incurred to staff time. So what's in front of you today is what we will use for the next 2 years, assuming you choose to approve it. We did put it out for comment. We received no comments on it while it was out for the public to look at and our member agencies to look at as well.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions of staff? Commissioner Murray?
A real high level question. Are all the fees compulsory? So for instance, certain LAFCOs don't have special district members, and there's some discussion that, that they don't want to pay the fees or sort, but Jason, can you advise us that they all are compulsory because we have county, city, and special districts?
This is not our membership fees. This is the application fees. Membership fees are done by state government code, and those everyone pays based on what it is, and we get everyone to pay every year. That was actually kind of the last item, not this item.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification.
Okay. Any other commissioners have questions? Oh, I see Commissioner Chu.
Yes. You kind of gave an example of one of the items going up about 10%. Overall, how would you compare the total package, generally in terms of the percentage increase, how that compares to, whatever you're using as an index to, like whatever cost of living
So
index you're comparing it to.
The 10% number, because I know we had this discussion earlier, we have the basic application. That we have a lot of different things on the schedule, but I would say 95% of what we do here is that basic application. And all of those, that's the 10% number. I think there's minor changes for other things, but we get so little of it. Like there can be an entire year or 2 years before we even see someone use a different one of the other items on our fee schedule. It really is the application. The basic application is really what everyone pays us for. The only other thing that changes is if we're doing research for somebody, and those went up a similar amount, just because the salary is such a big factor in salary and benefits is such a big factor in how we calculate everything out.
So you think it reasonably compares to, say, any cost of living adjustment over the last 2 years for Marin County, the Bay Area, however you're using that as an index?
Yeah, I mean, we don't use that as an index. We have to put in what our physical costs are. And so our physical costs are based on how much is each staff person paid in all their benefits? How much do they cost us to be here at the end of the day? So it is purely based on that. It is not based on did things raise 3%? That doesn't impact how the fee schedule gets put together, because we have to put what are our physical costs in there. And so all of our items are our physical costs to do them. Now, on the labor side, all of them are exact amounts. On the how we do the formula side, that's an average. Instead of, some LAFCOs will actually say, give us a deposit for $10,000 and we'll just spend down as much as we need to and then give you back what's ever left over at the end of the day. Instead of doing that, which causes a lot of extra work and a lot of extra tracking, we use, and other LAFCOs do it as well, use the average approach. So what is the average amount of time we spend on an application? And that's what that chart shows you. That's the average amount of time. Some applicants use a little more time, some use a little bit less, but they all pay the same amount because we use an average system.
Okay, that's good. Thank you, because you can always refer back to the chart then, as long as there's something defensible in terms of, the increase from last time to this time. Thank you.
Okay. Any other commissioners have questions? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom?
No one's on Zoom.
Okay, bringing it back, I'm closing the public hearing. Would somebody like to move this item?
Move to approve resolution 2517, update the LAFCO fee schedule for from the 2 years ago.
Okay, so we have Commissioner Chu, seconded by Commissioner Berto. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Okay, we are moving now, business items. We're moving to item 8, election of chair and vice chair. Would you like to take this away?
Yes, so every year, based on Marin LAFCO policy, you are to elect after the first Monday in May or your next available meeting, which is always our June meeting based on how we meet. You are to elect a chair and vice chair. You are free to select any non-alternate member. Any regular member can be elected as chair. Last year, we approved a policy for 3 years. I want to make sure it's clear that Chair Kohler is not pressing up against that 3-year thing. The way I wrote the staff memo, I will freely acknowledge might have confused things a little bit. I wanted to bring up as a secondary topic a discussion about how you deal with partial terms. So once you deal with electing chair or vice chair, I do want to come back and have a quick discussion on how we deal with partial terms and how we should move forward on that. But I don't want to confuse the two issues. So let's focus. I would recommend at least focusing first on elect your chair and vice chair, any regular members available. And once we do that, we'll come back and have a discussion about a second part.
Jason, if I could just jump in, we didn't agendize the second part, but if there is a desire to bring that back at a future meeting in terms of the length of a term, we can do that.
You don't think the way the staff memo was written, that allows us to have a quick discussion, not make a decision, but just have a quick discussion?
I think we should send it to the Personnel and Policy Committee. I think that's the place where we came up with the 3 years. I would check in, but I don't think we need to do, what does Mala feel?
I was just going to
It's
say,
more fitting there.
the agenda doesn't call for it to be discussed, but as I mentioned,
No, we're not discussing it tonight. What I'm saying is it's fitting for the Personnel and Policy Committee to take that up. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, as long as the commission doesn't direct them to take it up. If they want to take it up on their own, that is something they could do.
Okay, we won't do that. All right. Did you?
I'd be glad to move Chair Kohler for another term if she's willing to serve.
Second.
Thank you. I think we need to go out to public comment, but thank you. And I want to move Vice Chair Rodoni to continue as Vice Chair. So,
I'll second that.
okay. So before we take the final vote, let's see if there hasn't been anyone on Zoom.
If someone comes on Zoom, I'll let you know. Otherwise, assume no one's there on Zoom.
I think I have to ask regardless, but anyway, bringing it back. So the first motion, and thank you very much, was for me to continue as chair, and that was Vice Chair Rodoni and seconded by Commissioner Lucan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that passes unanimously. The second motion was Vice Chair Rodoni continuing as Vice Chair, and I made the motion, and the second was Commissioner Caius. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? I forgot to say aye. And any abstentions? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Look forward to continuing the good work. It's been good. Okay, and now we're moving on to item 9, which is a second amendment to employment agreement for executive officer.
I believe Mala will be taking that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Kohler. What you have before you is consideration of authorizing the chair to execute a second amendment to the executive officers agreement. What this amendment does is provides that the executive officer is eligible to earn and be considered for a performance-based bonus each fiscal year. There are certain factors the commission can consider if it decides to issue a bonus, including employees' attainment of identified goals and objectives, leadership ability in providing oversight and direction to the employees, responsiveness to the board, relevant stakeholders, and members of the public, and then any other relevant factors as determined by the commission. In addition, this amendment provides for a $1,000 bonus to the executive director for his work for fiscal year 24-25. In the future, if you were to move forward and execute this amendment, should you desire to issue additional bonuses, you would not need a contract amendment, but we did need the contract amendment to provide for the bonus structure. Happy to answer any questions, but at this point, we're recommending that the chair execute the second amendment.
I think also, maybe just to make it clear, I'm not sure that everyone was here. I think it was last year's amendment that we have in the packet made it clear that the executive officer also gets the COLA that staff are getting, which I believe is 4% this year. So just a reminder, we don't have to put that in the agreement because the earlier amendment made it clear that every year he or she or they would get that COLA and then anything on top of that as need be. Is that clear, Mala?
That is correct, Chair.
Okay, any questions of Mala? Seeing none, there's no one on Zoom, correct? Okay, bringing it back to the commission, would somebody like to move this item?
I'd like to move the Second Amendment to the employment agreement for the executive officer.
Second.
Okay, so we have Vice Chair Rodoni and Second Commissioner Berto, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, seeing none, that passes unanimously. I want to thank Jason for his dedication and hard work and continuing to work with staff to further streamline some of these projects and moving forward on some of the direction we've given. So thank you. So now we're moving on to our favorite part, which is the lightning round executive officer report. But I am going to have a question on one. I'm sure others may too.
Okay. So in front of you is your budget update for 24-25. We continue to be under budget. I will tell you, I already know right now, our professional services line item as of today, since Chair Kohler signed a check as long with me to pay for our some of our GIS work, professional services line item is going to go over budget, but we will still remain under budget for our overall operation. So it's one line item over, but based on savings and other line items, we will be okay by the end of the year. But I did want to give you a heads up that that was coming. We have completed, and this kind of gets to our work plan item, but I'll give you a preview of that, why we're over budget. This year, with Jaron taking the Omen's lead on this, he's worked with the county to correct a lot of issues we found after we got out of Marin map. You've heard Jaron talking about having to fix GIS layers and all that stuff. That is now basically complete. I think there's a little bit of cleanup left, but the county has completed its work, and now our GIS person is fixing those things for us. The county did the vast majority of the costs the county took on. There were some minor things that we needed to have our GIS person do, but it took a few hours to do, a few more hours than we originally anticipated, which is why we're going to go over budget for that line item. I will note, in the budget we approved today, we increased the professional services line item, so that really shouldn't be an issue in the future. It's just this 1 year, because of this project, we're going to have that small problem. So with that, if there's no questions on the budget, I will move on to current pending proposals. You see that we have a couple of applications that will be coming up for approval at a future meeting. We approved one today, so we continue to get them in. We've recently gotten them in at a pretty healthy clip. At some point, they'll probably slow down, but we are moving through those on a good pace. For our work plan, there's one item that is on there that I mentioned around San Rafael and Marinwood Fire. I did attend a meeting earlier this week. The two agencies are starting to have a discussion. As it turns out, Marinwood, and I've talked to them and they were okay with me saying this publicly, has been having an issue with recruiting of fire paramedics positions with it for their fire agency. They currently have contracts and agreements that with shared services and stuff like that with San Rafael. So they're looking to potentially expand that. It may come back to us, depending on what direction and how that expansion works out. It may come back to us for an approval, because sometimes if it's an out of service agreement for San Rafael to physically do fire services, we need to have a review of that process. And so I've been talking with them about what that would look like and what that means. But it's not a guarantee at this point. They're in very early discussions, so I'm waiting to see what actually transpires with that. So for right now, that item is going to continue on we're not working on it, because it's really just early. Like, I gave them some information. If it turns out I start doing a little more work, I will take that item off of the not working on category and move it up and bump it up to a higher level one. But at this point, I don't think we're quite there yet to bump it out off of that not working it on list.
Okay, so I have a few, 'cause people reached out to me, so I have a few questions that might be more of the down the road, but things to take
Yes.
into consideration. But the first question, which you partially answered, I know Marin Wood for many years has wanted to go into San Rafael Fire. In that meeting, and Marin Wood explained, and you just explained the recruitment difficulties, but was there an interest from San Rafael Fire in taking this more seriously, under consideration?
As a consolidation?
Yeah.
Yeah. They had not thought about it. The last time we had a discussion about this was a few years ago. Everybody who was in the room was not working for San Rafael at that point in time. And so I did bring up, can we, instead of doing this agreement, why don't we have a discussion about creating a dependent or independent fire district and consolidating all of the San Rafael, Marinwood, the CSAs that are affiliated with those two fire agencies, and consolidate them into one. There was some interest there. They were willing to listen to it. None of the people who were in the room, other than perhaps the fire chief himself, were the people who will physically be making that decision, but they were willing to at least listen and take it up the chain. The comment that I did get back was that getting Marinwood's firehouse with enough firefighters was a top priority and needed to be done right away. So my guess is they're going to focus on that in the short term, but it sounded like they were willing to, in the long run, perhaps come back and have a discussion about what does an actual full consolidation look like of those two fire agencies.
So thank you. When you say Marin, there's an interest right now in ensuring that they get them staffed up, does that mean was San Rafael Fire helping them?
Yes, that is what the thinking is that if the firefighters are under San Rafael's umbrella rather than under Marinwood's, that it might be easier to recruit people for those positions. And so that's what they're looking at. Is there a way to actually have, and Marinwood's willing to have that discussion, because Marinwood acknowledges that it's an actual serious problem for them right now. And so they're looking at what are their options. And that is a very viable option of have all the firefighters leave Marinwood's employment, become San Rafael firefighter employees, and then Marinwood contracts with San Rafael as an out-of-service agreement to do that thing. That is not the long-term fix for Marinwood, but it is a short-term fix for their immediate staffing needs.
Oh, okay. And there appears to be interest for that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, now I had somebody reach out to me who's not real familiar with the LAFCO process. So some of these things are way down the road, but I'll just throw them out. As the discussions are starting, but will take time to work through, how is the current level of service being maintained? You've already answered. They're not able to do it at Marinwood, and it looks like San Rafael has an interest in working with them to help them staff up.
I would say, I don't want to say they don't have the capabilities to do the services that they need right now. They do. They're just stretched very thin, and they're worried that if it could get worse, and that's when the problems start arising. So they recognize that a problem could exist down the road. I want to be very clear. Marinwood has the capabilities of serving its people right now as it sits, but they have concerns going down the road, which is what they're trying to get ahead of and fix before it becomes a problem.
Okay, and I think from what I understand, Marinwood only really has two on an engine.
Well,
And
they do 3 on an engine.
I've been told a lot of times it's two,
Okay,
because of short staffing. And then the other thing is, again, these are questions that are more down the road if things get more serious. What is the intended service delivery model for San Rafael to provide service to Marinwood? Contract for service, consider a fire district. And you've already raised those issues of potential for doing some kind of movement of the Marinwood firefighters over doing a contract, potentially consolidation, and there may be some interest in that in the future. And then will the same level of service be provided to Marinwood in CSA 13 as the rest of San Rafael?
Yeah, I mean, as it sits right now, Marinwood is responsible for those two, and they will continue to technically remain responsible. The question is, how much are they contracting with San Rafael to cover those services? That's really what they're thinking about in the short term
Okay.
solution.
Okay, well, it sounds positive, even a short-term solution. And then the last thing, again, I apologize, some of these are things that are more down the road. If San Rafael is contracted to provide fire service, would the Marinwood employees become San Rafael employees? And who would assume pension liabilities? So you've already talked about potentially the idea of going over and becoming San Rafael Fire. But as far as pension liabilities, I would assume that'd be all worked out
Yeah,
later.
that's for them to figure out. That's not something I'm in the room for. So
Right, okay, so that's clear that LAFCO does not get involved in who does what pension liabilities.
yeah, only if we're dealing with like a Southern Marin Mill Valley, like it's like when it's actually a LAFCO application process, that's when we get involved in the pensions. If it's just a, hey, we're doing a contract for services, that's not really, LAFCO doesn't get in this into the weeds at the same level.
Okay, well, thank you, Paula. Oh, and Vice Chair Rodoni?
Yeah, Jason, thank you for the update. Supervisor Sackett reached out to me because this is her district, so she's kind of tracking this and gave me a little bit of an update. I'm happy to see that you're tracking it because I do think LAFCO has a role here, and it's important that we do track it. And I'm glad that I'm hearing you would even adjust a work plan if that was needed, because I think that might have been a concern of some of the partner agencies. This is really important work when districts like this start talking about how to make their service more efficient. Fortunately, with our mutual aid agreements in the county, the customer doesn't see these holes,
Right.
but they are there, and sometimes it causes extra vehicles to move to medical emergencies, for example, because there may not be a paramedic on an engine. And so as far as efficiency, it's important that we look at these things. And as long as the conversation is open, I'm glad that you're willing to step up and help out, because I think when we're there, it's a better conversation and we learn more and we're able to help to move it forward in any way we can. So thank you, Jason.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And I will say, agencies are starting to approach us when they're starting these programs out, which is not something that occurred when I was first here. So I think that is a very good. They're seeing that we want to be an ally and a helper, and most agencies are starting to acknowledge that LAFCO has turned a corner from where it was prior to us being here and the current board and the way we worked in the past. And I think that a lot of are starting, especially in the fire side, are really starting to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think this is a real nice positive move. I've only been sitting here a few years, but there really was no movement. And I really think having you in the room, provides sort of a neutral party that can just provide information that people don't know.
Mhm.
So I think that's great. Other questions of staff on this part of the report? Okay, moving on.
All right. So the last item on the executive officer's report is Cal LAFCO related news. So a lot has transpired since our April meeting. You remember at the April meeting, I mentioned that there was going to be a regional discussion group. Both Commissioners Murray and Kaez agreed to go to that. Unfortunately, they were asked not to attend after the fact. And I'm going to give you very good reasons why. We were the only LAFCO that had commissioners from our region that were going, and a lot of staff are not comfortable talking with commissioners in the room. You know me, I will talk with commissioners in the room, but others take a much more reserved approach. So what was requested of us by Pamela Miller, and I did talk to Commissioners Murray and Kaez. Pamela did a one-on-one if requested. I know Commissioner Murray took advantage of that. So we were able to get our comments into them. Any commissioner that was going to that meeting was able to share and have in some ways, a more thorough discussion, because what ends up occurring in these things, they're breakout groups. And so you have groups within your small chats, and you come to what's going on. I think Commissioner Murray probably got the better deal out of this by being able to do the one-on-one. I think Commissioner Kaez, you chose to let the letter that we wrote stand for itself, so didn't do that one-on-one. So that did transpire. What occurred, and I don't get into what occurred at the meeting itself, but what came out of it, in my opinion, was very positive. There was a lot of very good, honest discussions going on between staff about what we see as the potential future of Cal LAFCO. So I came out of that feeling very positive. I will say, however, After that meeting occurred, I have found out that 2 more LAFCOs have decided not to renew dues. One of them is Napa. The other is El Dorado, is the second LAFCO that has chosen not to renew for next year. I did talk to the Napa executive officer finally this afternoon. He finally returned my call, asking him why. I will be honest with you, I'm not fully convinced or understand why they're leaving, but they chose to leave. And I have not had a chance to talk to El Dorado. I have a meeting. They basically, as they announced that they were going on vacation, and so as soon as they get back from their vacation, we've already got a time to sit down. I have a very good relationship with that executive officer, so I'm sure I'll get some answers. But with that said, I think Cal LAFCO is moving in the right direction. They're doing a lot of good things. I think what Pamela now has collected all the data, all the information, and in the next month or so, I believe is when she's supposed to issue a report to the Cal LAFCO board. Once I get my hands on that report, which I understand we're going to get our hands on it, I will share it with all of you as best I can, or it might end up being put on the Cal LAFCO website, at which point I will point you to that, because we got to be careful about if there's internal discussions. We don't necessarily want to have Cal LAFCO business out in the general public, and I don't want to necessarily have some of those things come here. So I might have a side discussion with 1 or 2 of you who I know are very interested in the subject matter. I will add, finally on this, one of the things that has come out and we've already started is from on the staff side is there's a lot of discussion about younger staff needing mentors within Cal LAFCO, not just your own boss, but others who may be able to help you out. And I was asked to serve on the committee to establish that mentor program. So that was my colleagues said, Jason, you are good at this stuff. Can you please help us figure out how to create it? So we are just getting started on that. So hopefully in the not too distant future, we will have a mentorship program for young staff to learn what it means to be a LAFCO staffer and help them grow. Because one of the things that we always have a problem with is you get staff that come in very good, but we got to give them the ability to grow and stay hopefully within the LAFCO family if they're good, because that's the problem. You lose too many good staff to other agencies and other government bodies, and we want to try and keep them in the LAFCO family. So I will be helping out a little bit. It shouldn't take too much of my time, but I'm going to be helping with that mentorship program, creating it, and probably will volunteer to be a mentor if someone actually wants to listen to me on how to be a LAFCO staffer. So that is my Cal LAFCO update at this point. And then the final thing that I wanted to mention is between now and our next meeting, you're going to start seeing some staff take some very long vacation times because they've been building up all their vacation hours and need to take time off. So if you're calling, you might find out that someone's on vacation for a couple weeks. That we know if you need something, someone else on staff will help you out. So we're making sure that we know what each other's doing and making sure everything is covered. I just took my long vacation, so I won't be doing that. But the rest of the staff hasn't had that chance yet, so they'll be doing that over the summer.
Will there be any periods where multiple staff members are gone at the same time?
I do not allow multiple staff to take vacations at the same time. There might be a day with a 980 where there's only one staff person on board, but I will never allow with such a small agency having 2 staff be on vacation at the same time. Because if, like, take for example this week, Jaren's homesick. If Claire and I were on vacation, there's no one manning the store. So I'm very cognizant of that issue and making sure that we're covered.
Okay, any questions of staff on the Cal LAFCO matter or other? I have one thought. I read through all the materials that they sent. There are other organizations that deal with multiple agencies. For example, I dealt with CAPCOA a lot. In fact, I work for CAPCOA. CAPCOA is over the 35 air districts in California, and they have been very successful for many, many years. And one of the things I thought was missing, I thought there was a lot of good stuff in that material, is to start looking at other groups, similar groups, and check in with them on their successes. We don't have people leaving CAPCOA, and it's 35 air districts, and I can tell you some of them have one person. And then there's South Coast, which is the largest in the country. And then there's Bay Area and San Diego, the big ones. But there's so many little ones. So to me, I'm familiar with CAPCOA. There's probably others, but it sure seems to me like trying to cull some information on their successes and how they keep people together and why it's worked. Maybe something that whoever becomes interim executive officer of that group or Pamela?
No, Pamela is a consultant and they are looking for, we currently have an interim executive director, although he is freely, it's the Sacramento LAFCO
Right.
EO, and he's freely admitted that he's overburdened at this point and is looking for someone else to help take over. But yes, no, that very discussion actually was part of, we were brainstorming other groups that were like us at the retreat. So that has been brought up, although Capcoa wasn't. So I'm going to add that to the list to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, they have 35 air
Yeah, no.
districts, so it's one of those where you're dealing with multiples.
Yeah.
But you know, I saw that Pamela is a consultant for a while, and I think she's good. So whatever we can use her for would be great.
Yep.
Okay, other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Executive Officer Freed. Commissioner announcements and requests. Do we have any? Okay, guess what? We're adjourning to the next meeting, which is August 14th, and I will report that we are exactly an hour, 7:32.